Does local law enforcement and the state attorney's office for the 18th Judicial Circuit in Brevard County deserve the public's trust and confidence? Let's take a look at one case that happened in the small town of Rockledge, Florida, and let the citizens decide. The case of Rodney Temple versus Ralph McCoig. In this case, Rodney Temple accuses and alleges that his landlord, Ralph McCoig, shot at his automobile at a municipal intersection in broad daylight. These accusations are reported to the Rockledge police office just hours after McCoig filed a lawsuit against Mr. Temple for contract infringement. Here's how the law enforcement in Rockledge handled that case. Well, to be honest, they never really had a case.
Okay, and it was just circumstantial that you guys today happened to be at Barton and Seminole at the same time?
Yes.
And he was headed west.
Yep.
on Barton. Yep. So next thing you know, you hear a pop.
Yep.
And when did you get out to actually discover there was a bullet hole in your truck?
I actually just went through the intersection and
Go ahead and tell them to turn off the car.
Rolled my window down and looked, and I could see it, and I knew something had happened. So I spun around and come back here. And in the process, I called 911.
Okay. All right. Nothing occurred at this coffee shop beforehand between you and him?
No.
Okay. I was just trying to figure out how, just circumstantially, he had his gun out and he was ready to go.
Temple is getting sued. McCoig is taking the legal route to resolve their differences. Okay, so now this guy claims that Mr. McCoig shot at him, and this is a police officer listening to Rodney Temple's side of the story. He's asking these questions like, let me try to figure this out. He's suing you, correct, Mr. Temple? So you're telling me that nothing happened between you and him at your coffee shop? Don't you think it's coincidental that all of a sudden you two guys arrive at the same roadway intersection and he's got a gun and now he shoots at you? So the lead investigator is thinking, well, this just doesn't make sense. How can that substantiate probable cause? We hear a supposedly reasonable person making a reasonable decision that this actually happened when he is making comments like, don't you think it's kind of odd? But with suspicion of probable cause, police can appeal to a magistrate and obtain an arrest warrant. They can say, oh yeah, there's a dent in a door of a truck, and we have an affidavit accusing someone. Once you're arrested, you're in the system, and the nightmare begins. Let's hear the interview of Ralph McCoig after he was arrested when he is telling his side of the events that day.
Like the chief was saying, there's a lot of pieces to this.
This is absolutely crazy, Chief.
So, we're trying our best to, to work this fully, and as much cooperation as we can get, it makes everybody's life a whole lot easier.
Where you want to go, you're a very smart man, is up to you. Try to get ahead of it, or, it's up to you, sir.
I don't know what you mean when you say try to get ahead of it.
And when I say try to get ahead of it, if you, again, I have to be very careful here with, we can never lead somebody into something. When I say get ahead of it, very few times in situations like this do people or are people afforded the opportunity to help themselves. And that's what you have here, sir. If you continue to maintain your innocence and request counsel, that's entirely up to you. But prior to doing that, my only purpose coming in was again to greet you, but also to let you know that you do have this option to help yourself. Explain it. You felt threatened, he drove at your car? I don't know, I wasn't there. I'm just saying things that could explain the actions, but
I did not see Mr. Temple at that intersection.
yes, sir.
I did not fire a gun. I did not point anything at anyone.
Okay. And that's what bothers me. Let's operate under the premise that you're completely innocent.
Ralph McCoig served as a Rockledge City councilman, chairman of the Florida Real Estate Commission, and participated on numerous volunteer committees. He is not used to being in this situation, and who wouldn't be scared in that room, especially when the chief of police started talking like this. You know, what the hell is going on here? Were these guys plotting against him, not even giving him the benefit of the doubt? They were trying to get him to admit to guilt to something he didn't do. This is the police chief trying to aggressively coerce Mr. McCoig into making a confession. Let's play this clip from court when lead investigator Phillips expressly points out it is the chief that is directing the interrogation.
You say try to get ahead of it.
And when I say try to get ahead of it, if you,
That's the chief.
again, I have to be very careful here.
Yeah, that's the chief. We're talking about Chief Joseph Lasada from the Rockledge Police. Let's listen further.
Search my vehicle. I have no gun in my vehicle.
Yes, sir, but if I'm Phil Archer, and you know Phil, you have plenty of time to get rid of it, Your Honor, because between there and your office and your house, that's what you're up against.
That's what you're up against? Did Police Chief Joe Lasada just say that the state attorney, Phil Archer, will tell the judge Mr. McCoig had plenty of time to destroy and hide evidence? Is this collusion between the chief of police and the state attorney to intimidate an innocent person into making a false confession? Is this a tactic to coerce a false confession? Has this tactic been used before with other citizens? Is this police misconduct? The citizens of Brevard County need to know. Innocent until proven guilty? Apparently not in Rockledge, Florida, especially not in the privacy of the interrogation rooms. Now, while the so-called investigation of these allegations was proceeding with the police having found no bullet, no gun, no witness, no proven or tested evidence, this is Rockledge Police Officer Donna Seyfried on live television news. Take a look at this clip that went live on television hours after Ralph McCoig's arrest.
Mr. McCoig reached out and fired a round at his vehicle and struck it in the door.
That's the communication director for the Rockledge Police Department at the time. These egregious misstatements of facts caused irreparable damage to the reputation and excellent standing that Mr. McCoig and his family enjoyed within the community. One would think these comments would have gotten any police officer reprimanded or fired. But under the administration of Police Chief Joseph Lasada, Mrs. Seyfried was actually promoted. It sounds like she clearly said that Mr. McCoig did it. At this point, this was still an active investigation for the Rockledge Police Department, and Miss Donna was already reporting to live television. Even the chief of police is talking to Ralph like this is already a win case for them. Well, apparently, the Attorney General for the 18th Judicial Circuit, Mr. Phil Archer, and his office agreed with the Rockledge Police Department about Mr. McCoig's guilt. In August of 2017, they formally charged Mr. McCoig with 2 felonies: aggravated assault with a deadly firearm and shooting or throwing a missile into an occupied vehicle. Together, these felonies provided for a maximum penalty of 21 years in prison. Now, the question is, what did the Rockledge Police and the State Attorney's Office have to support these very serious allegations? Usually, the State Attorney's Office does not move forward with a case unless they believe that the evidence will prove the suspect's guilt beyond any reasonable doubt. It sounds like they have an easy, provable case with an abundance of evidence. Let's see what really happened in court.
State's offer is that they would null pros count 1 and count 2, shooting or throwing a deadly missile into a dwelling, vehicle, or structure. They would request a withhold of adjudication, 4 years of supervised probation, allowing for early termination. You would be ordered to pay mandatory court costs, cost of prosecution, no contact with the alleged victim, restitution in the amount of $2,500, cost of investigation of $893.93, and that is the state's offer. Do you wish to accept or reject that offer?
Your Honor, I'm not guilty of any of these false allegations. I will not accept any kind of plea deal.
Okay, so you are rejecting the offer, correct?
So in June of 2018, Judge McKibben asked prosecutors, "Do you have a plea deal for Mr. McCoig?" "Yes, ma'am, we do. We're not going to move forward on count 1, aggravated assault with a firearm. We are now dropping that charge." But here's the kicker. they never actually did find any firearm and or bullet, long before they were willing to drop the charge. So the other deal offered by the state attorney was to withhold adjudication, pay some fines, and do a little probation. So after 12 months of putting Mr. McCoig and his family through nights and days of depression and anxiety, fear of losing their freedom and ability to spend time with family for 21 years, fear of losing their business and everything they worked 40 years to obtain, seeing their reputation being destroyed, community and friends believing Mr. McCoig is a felon. They had no evidence other than, we know this guy's got a dent in his door and a paint chip in the road that Mr. Temple led the police to. He told the police, hey, look, there's a paint chip over there. That proves that there was a shooting and Mr. McCoig did it. Now, when Mr. McCoig said, hell no, I'm innocent, I'm not going to take any plea deal, in the background, you can hear prosecutor Miss Stewart whisper, oh God. Was she thinking, oh God, we're taking a man to trial with not a shred of evidence that proves he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? Or, oh God, another jury trial loss on my resume? Or, oh God, we're in trouble now. But let's continue watching. This time, crime scene tech Cindy Seeley and Officer Richard Harris showed up in the court to testify what the Rockledge police did with the car door that supposedly contained a bullet hole and other pieces of evidence collected in this case.
Rockledge police, responded, they looked at it, and then they just let this piece of evidence go?
What are you supposed to do, impound the truck?
Yes.
No. We photographed it, we collected any physical evidence off of it that we could, and then we released the vehicle back.
Tell the jury why you swab someone's hands.
To see if they have any gunshot residue on them.
And if they had gunshot residue on their hands, it would indicate that they had fired a gun recently, correct?
Correct.
And typically, gunshot residue, even if you wash your hands or attempt to wipe it off, because it actually, the force of the gunshot residue actually gets into the skin, it's detectable even after someone has attempted to wash it away. Isn't that true?
It could be, not always.
Okay. But you never even bothered to submit that particular sample for any sort of analysis anywhere, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And the shirt that you're talking about, that was Mr. McCoig's shirt that was recovered from him while he was under arrest at the Rockledge Police Department.
Correct.
Correct? And he voluntarily turned it over, and the purpose of that was to test that shirt for gunshot residue.
Correct.
Because even if he had washed his hands, if he was wearing that shirt at the time the gun would fire, gunshot residue could be in the fibers of the shirt, correct?
Correct.
And you didn't even bother to send that for testing anywhere, did you?
I did attempt. I made a phone call, and I spoke to Michael Vargas from FDLE.
I don't want you to repeat what someone else said. You made a telephone call, okay?
Yes.
Did you send it anywhere?
No.
Okay. Now, FDLE is a state crime lab that you can use, correct?
Correct.
But there are also other resources available for the Rockledge Police Department if for whatever reason FDLE, you don't meet their criteria, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Did you attempt to send any of this evidence to any other crime lab?
I did not.
Okay. Or any private lab or anything of that nature?
No, I did not.
Okay. Now, we also, we've already established that these chips that were sent off, no testing was actually ever done on them. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you didn't attempt to send that to anyone other than FDLE. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, also, a door was recovered in this particular case, correct?
Correct.
Was any ballistics testing done on that door?
No.
Any tool mark analysis done on that door?
No.
Was the door ever sent anywhere for any of those things to be done?
It was not.
Okay. The photographs that you were just shown, the purpose of the scale is to assist in ballistics and/or tool mark identification, correct?
Correct.
I mean, based on your training, that's why you take those photographs with the scale, because someone who's qualified, an expert in that area, can use those measurements in terms of tool mark identification or ballistics identification and actually determine how that indentation was made, correct?
That's correct.
But those photographs were never sent to anybody either, were they?
No.
Okay. Now, you don't have a ballistics expert per se at the Rockledge Police Department, is that correct?
Correct.
There's no one that is trained to do that analysis, so you have to, you gather evidence, and then it's necessary for you to send it to an expert to analyze it and come to a conclusion, correct?
In most cases.
Okay.
So what is really happening here? Were the police trained properly and didn't do what they were trained to do? Or do they just don't really care if there's evidence or not? Was the state attorney's main modus operandi get someone booked, make up some charges, introduce them into the nightmare legal system, and sweat them until they take a plea deal, whether they have any evidence or not? I mean, they were not trying to prove anything based on the evidence they had. Is this corruption we're talking about here? No analyzed, evaluated evidence was presented on this case. So why is Mr. McCoig not innocent from the very beginning? Law enforcement didn't perform forensic, ballistic, or tool dye analysis to the main piece of evidence, the vehicle's door. The vehicle's door that supposedly contained a bullet hole. State Attorney's Office sent the paint chip to be tested. Florida Department of Law Enforcement lab sent it back, not tested. So there's no conclusive evidence that a shooting even occurred, much less Ralph McCoig doing it. The only thing that got him arrested, charged, and facing 21 years in prison is someone saying he did something bad and law enforcement agreeing. Let's take a look at Mr. McCoig's attorney's closing statements.
He gave him access to her body, his clothing, his house, his business, his vehicles. He talked with them. He was in this office making telephone calls at 2:45. So that information was available and within the Rockledge Police Department, but somehow it becomes Mr. McCoig's fault and problem that nothing was done with that information to verify. Saying that's not important, convict him anyway. We had it in the possession of law enforcement, but we chose not to introduce it. And that's what's happening in this particular case.
In this closing statement, the jury is presented with the fact that if any of these items had been tested and proved negative, this would have exonerated Mr. McCoig from the beginning. They would have had to let him go right then and there, or at least avoid waiting a full year to go to court. Mr. McCoig had to live a whole year while still charged with 2 felonies, and there was nothing he could do about it. And even worse, now he still must live his life with the damage caused by this case, even though the police never had a case.
This is not in any way directed toward Ms. Perrin or Ms. Stewart, who are fine attorneys and fine representatives of the state. But it is the responsibility of the state collectively, not just the state attorney's office, not just these representatives in this table, but the Rockledge Police Department is part of the state. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement Lab is part of the state. Those decisions the state is responsible for. And it is the state of Florida that has the responsibility to prove these allegations beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. And they have utterly failed. They failed at every level of this case. They failed at the investigative stage, they certainly failed at the forensic stage, and they failed at the proof of trial stage. And if you convict on this type of evidence, your verdict will be a miscarriage of justice. I am confident that you will not. What is the point of a citizen cooperating with an investigation and giving them access to all this evidence? What is the point of gathering all this evidence if you're going to do absolutely nothing with it? The state is asking you to convict my client of a very serious offense based on the testimony of Rodney Temple. And they haven't done the first thing, though they had every ability to do so, to corroborate it or not. And most of those things had the ability to exonerate my client.
No gunshot residue on his hands or on his shirt. What good is it for a citizen to supply all this information, all this evidence, when it's never tested? It's hard to say what is the root of all this incompetent legal process that is implemented in Rockledge, Florida, and maybe in many other parts in the U.S. On June 29, 2018, Judge McKibben instructed the jury. They left the courtroom and 18 minutes later returned to announce that Ralph J. McCoig is not guilty, so say we all. So after 12 months and hundreds of man-hours, tens of thousands of private dollars spent, tens of thousands of taxpayer money wasted, an innocent citizen and his family reputation is destroyed and their income and livelihood diminished. And all because the police department didn't perform their job, the state attorney's office was too eager to obtain another conviction, and the existence of a broken down law enforcement system that does not seek justice. But let's fix this system. City council members, evaluate the police officers working for your cities. Terminate employment for the rotten apples immediately. And provide thorough training to those officers eager to learn proper policies and procedures. For elected officials such as state attorneys, vote out the bad ones, elect competent men and women with integrity who will uphold the sacred trust of protecting the innocent. This is a call to action to make these changes and more, to ensure another innocent citizen and their family will not experience the horror Mr. McCoig and his family experienced. Stay tuned for our next video and see how the United States District Court of the Middle District of Florida ruled in the case of McCoig versus City of Rockledge, Florida.